Hi, it's Lois. This is part 2 of my rainbow mask making project. If you followed my video from 2 days ago, I posted a video about painting rainbow fabric. And so I set up in my front yard and I painted a bunch of rainbow fabric, and it was fun because I get to watch people walk by and see my rainbow flags in celebration of Pride Month. Actually, the Pride Parade happens just down the street here in St. Charles, and of course it was canceled this year, so it's kind of a nice consolation prize for me. Today I'm going to fix the rainbow fabric that we made the other day, and it's actually been 48 hours. So I was out in the sun so much the other day that it just kind of laid me out. And it's better than it used to be. I've started taking this new drug called flunomide. For any of you who also suffer from lupus, you might consider using it because it's been very helpful for me. I've got my fabric here. So ideally, with this tulip one-step tie-dye, you do not have to fix it. But I am, having been a silk painter, I am super paranoid about people wearing things like masks and kind of intimate objects that you've dyed where they have bleed. And so I try to minimize the bleed, because there's nothing worse than feeling like some garment that you made is going to leave a bunch of black marks on people. So I try to make sure and be super diligent about fixing my dyes to make sure that they stay in the fabric, and I am able to keep a bunch of vibrant color, and also that it doesn't wash out after time. And so ideally you're going to be washing these masks because they are machine washable. That's the whole crux of this, doing the handmade masks. So I'm going to fix this in a color stay dye fixative. Now it doesn't require, the tulip manufacturing doesn't require it because it's called a one-step process. I would imagine there might be some soda ash in the actual dye, which is why it's one step. But I am always precautionary about stuff like this. Even when I do my silk painting with the green label dyes, I like to, even though I steam fix the dyes, I add one step and I put chemical dye set concentrate in there to try to ensure that as much of the dye stays in the garment as possible. So I use, for cotton, I'm using this RIT Color Stay Dye Fixative. And you can get this in the RIT section of dyes at JoAnn's, Michael's, Walmart, and it's where the liquid dyes are. So when you buy the liquid dyes in a bottle like this, you can also get the Color Stay Fixative, and it's about the same price as a bottle of dye, maybe a little bit more. I'm using, on the back, if you read the back of this, the instructions are you can either spray the color set fixative directly onto the fabric, or you can soak it. And so I'm going to use a sink or bucket method, and this requires 3 gallons of the hottest water possible with a half of a container of this RIT dye, the color set dye fixative. So I had a half left, and so I'm going to have to stretch it out as far as I can. So I'm going to try to do all these fabrics in the same tub. And mainly we're just kind of adding that extra step to ensure that we fix that dye, so to keep it from washing out and to keep it from bleeding out. So I have my, look how vibrant these colors are. And this is just sitting for 48 hours. I'll fold it up. I pulled it off the clothesline, and so it hasn't been rinsed, it hasn't been washed or anything. This is it after it's been dyed and dried. I'm going to stick it in my sink. Okay, so this is the fabric. You can see how vibrant it is. Look at that. This is even better than the last time I did it. Wow. I think just doing it in the sunshine, wow, helped. I'm hoping that most of this dye is going to stay in here because these are beautiful. Okay, so I've got my sink filled with 3 gallons of water and a half of a container of the color dye Fixative. And I'm just going to place these in here. The excess dye is going to leak out into your water. Hopefully your yellows will not get washed or mottled. This stuff is actually pretty good. Your whites on here, we'll have to double check and make sure that the white on this sateen fabric doesn't get icky. It may go pink or gray. We'll see. The instructions on this dye color set dye Fixative, and the reason why I'm dyeing all these together or fixing all these together is simply because I don't have enough of this, so I'm trying to stretch it out as much as I can. Okay, so you're going to have all this excess dye is going to leak out into the dye Fixative. And that may darken your lighter colors. But unfortunately, because resources are our constraint here, I thought I had an extra bottle of that stuff and I don't. Okay, so next thing I do is, on the bottle say you need to stir it constantly for 20 minutes. So I have this pair of chopsticks that I got at P.F. Chang's, which work really well for just kind of stirring this in the dye set Fixative, and then set your timer for 20 minutes. And just keep stirring. You want to make sure that the entire piece of fabric gets coated and the dye set Fixative works its way into every bit of the fabric. So that's why you want to stir it. Be back in 20 minutes. Okay. My fabric is done. Hear that snoring? That's my husband. He doesn't think he snores. He's taking a nap over there in his chair. So you're all witnesses. Okay, so my 20 minutes has been up. I've been stirring this in this hot water / dye Fixative solution, and then I'm going to rinse them off. Okay, this is my water. This is the dye Fixative in water solution. It's been soaking for 20 minutes and I've been stirring it. You can see some of the white spots have grayed out a little bit. So the colors have softened up a little bit. I'm hoping that it will retain most of its brilliancy, but we'll see when it comes out of the wash. Okay, so normally at this point in the process, I would wash this by hand in Synthropol, but this is a lot of fabric, and so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wash it in the washing machine, but I'm going to rinse it first. So I'm going to rinse all of this fabric out until in cold water, until the water runs clear. You can see the water is very dirty right now, and eventually I can rinse it and it will run clear. And once I do that with each one of these pieces, then I'll take them upstairs to the washing machine and wash them in the washer. These are my wads of fabric. They have been rinsed with warm water until they are clear. And so with this color stay dye Fixative and water mixture. And I forgot to put on gloves, so now my fingers are green. So I would suggest that if you're going to be rinsing this off, you wear some gloves. Much easier on your hands. This is my dedicated laundry room where I do my sanitization of masks. It's kind of nice that it's dedicated because I can keep it pretty much sanitized most of the time, all the surfaces. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and wash these for the first time. Normally if I was doing silk, I would wash it in this. Let me show you what I have. I would wash the dyes out with this solution called Synthropol, which is a commercial detergent that's very easy on fabrics and helps thoroughly wash any contaminants, unwanted materials out of, and extra dyes out of your material. So instead of washing with a commercial detergent, I'm going to use the Synthropol because I have it. Now the question is, where do you get it? You can order Synthropol at Dharma Trading Company, but you can also just use Ivory soap. I use this Ivory soap. It's hypoallergenic, fragrance-free for all the masks that I wash, because I don't want anybody to develop any allergies or anything like that to the masks once I sanitize them. But if you're thinking about doing this a lot, I would get some Synthropol, because this will work for washing dyes out of pretty much any material you want to. So I put a half a cup of the Synthropol in here because I've got quite a few pieces of fabric. Again, they've been rinsed thoroughly. I'm going to fluff them out a little bit so they wash correctly. They don't get all wrinkled. It's hard to fluff them once they've been washed. If you didn't do that before you put them in. Okay. So you can look at some of this material and see that some of the white may have grayed a little bit, but it's not too bad. Most of it rinsed out. So we'll see how it looks. I'm going to wash this on a regular cycle. I'm going to dry it in the dryer. I'm going to remove it from the dryer while it's still warm. If there's any extra wrinkles, I'll iron out those wrinkles before I start cutting for my fabric. My name is Lois. It's 2 days later. I managed to wash the majority of dye from my hands. I've been trying to figure this out. And I'm going to show you what I have with regard to this fabric. I've washed it. I've actually cut some of it up for masks. So I have a mask pattern that I'm going to be using. I'm going to show you what I came up with. It was the most disappointing. I double folded it when I put it on the stretcher, and I was just hoping that some of the dye would leak through. I used the rainbow colors and I tried to achieve something a little Pollock-esque, but it didn't work. You know, I'm using cheap dyes. I'm just using what I can afford to, not the professional dyes. And so it kind of looks like, even though it was rainbow colors, it sort of looks like maybe Jackson Pollock meets camouflage. I don't know. Like something he would take hunting. I don't know. But I'm disappointed with it, but I'm going to go ahead and use it. I'll probably cut it up for Mary's masks or something. Maybe even, because this is my sateen fabric, I might maybe make it into a garment for my daughter, because I'm making some clothes for my daughter. This is the Shibori pole dyeing fabric that I did. So I basically strung it out on a pole and crunched it up and painted rainbow colors on it. I kind of like that sheared effect, and I will use this for some of my masks as well, because there's a lot of it. This is one of the best brush painting examples I have. I already chopped the other one up, but these stripes kind of went across, and instead of cutting it the mask this way, I ended up cutting it this way. So here are the masks that I came up with. This is the standard deaconess style mask. And so it's kind of cool because I cut each one of these up. And so it's a different color combination, but they sort of blend together well. These deaconess style masks are just 2 layers of cotton with 6-inch ear loops. This mask is the JoAnn Fabrics mask pattern, and I'm going to post the link. But it's basically a standard surgical mask. They call the deaconess style mask. In the JoAnn Fabrics pattern, it calls for a sandwich layer of interfacing. I don't necessarily think that's necessary, so I just do the 2 layers of cotton, so it is machine washable. There's no filter, there's no nose wire. I tried to put a nose wire in there and embed one like for the Aries 2 masks, but I didn't like the way it came out. So I'm just going to sew these up without. So this is how they look. Essentially you start off with a 6x9 square for an adult size, and you sandwich the ear loops ends inside before you flip it inside out, and come up with this. Now on these, I've noticed when you wear them, there's a top side and a bottom side. So this is actually the top side. The pleats face down. And that fits better on the face because your nose ends up being right here, and it gives you a little pocket to breathe. You need to have a little bit of a pocket to breathe because if the mask is right up against your nostrils, you will not be able to breathe. Also, if the mask is too thick, it's almost like breathing through sofa cushions. So we had some masks that were just, the fabric was just too thick. It was like trying to breathe through a sofa cushion. I'm like, I ended up pulling those masks aside. But this is a good thickness. I've worn these masks myself. I take them to the store. I give them away to people. And I like them because they're easy to get on and off. If the ear loops are a little too long, you can just knot them to make them the right length. And like I said, they're machine washable, easy to get on and off. You don't have to pull a nose wire out. You don't have to pull a filter out and replace it. It's just something to get you in the store and out. And or a pride parade or a protest. So hopefully they will like these, and I will show you the bunch of them when I get them all sewn up. These elastics I buy at American Sewing Machine Company. And so they are very soft, and they won't tear into your earlobes. And you can actually tie knots in them to get them to adjust to the right size. So if I make them a little bit larger, then people can just knot them to get them to fit properly. So now this is my prototype with the nose pad. And I can tell you why it doesn't work, because I put this nose pad in here hoping to put a nose wire in to get it to fit to people's noses better, especially me, because of the shape of my nose. It kind of cuts across my eyes. It makes it difficult to see. But because of this nose pad being here, makes the pleat fall further down here, and then it makes it difficult for me to breathe. So I decided to opt for this style without the nose pad. And so the pleats usually will fall at the edge of your nose and allow a little pocket for you to be able to breathe. Because you have to be able to breathe under the mask. You can't you can't block out all the air, because you have to have air to breathe, right? So a little bit of air is going to escape from here. But the idea is that it's containing your droplets and protecting others as well as protecting you. So that's how I'm arriving at the design I have, because it's the most practical and economical for me to produce. Here is an example of the mask that I finally got together, mask design I finally got together without the nose wire, and kind of how it works. This is how my protest mask work actually too. So with a pleat way up here, then it gives you a little pocket to breathe here. And I can often walk around and not even know that I have it on. I draw up the lettering for these protest masks that I make for protesters before I sew up the pleats. Actually, I do it before I start sewing it up. But in this case, I did it before I sewed up the pleats because I wanted to see how it looked, the background looked, before I selected marker and all that other stuff. So I think that looks kind of cool. You can't read it very well because of the type that I did. It was all freehand script. But you can see how, especially with these protest mask designs that I do with the Aries 2.0, you can come to a blanket with a bunch of markers and draw lettering. And, you know, if it's easier to read, obviously, the better, because then you're getting your message across. But this is what it's going to look like. Now, everybody's going to have blank ones with just the rainbows. But each one is unique. It's handmade. They'll all be different, just like people, right? We are all different colors of the rainbow, and we're all unique and diverse, and we just need to embrace our diversity. Happy Pride Month!